Okay. Why why not?
Why not? Why not? Why can we not have saws and lawyers and people like that in the same room, Allie?
Well, we can, and we did
We did.
last week. We had ourselves a little school battle per se. At least I thought it was going to be because, we had a lawyer
Hmm.
and someone who brings woodworking into schools, and you'd think they'd be like oil and water,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a battle. It was really actually, I feel like we really learned a lot about some topics that you and I and those listening may not have known on that really powerful episode last week with Patricia and Mike. If you have not listened to it,
Yeah.
now here's your sign.
Right. Right.
It's
You know,
jam packed,
well, I
the whole
mean,
thing.
right. It's shop teacher and lawyer, right? I mean, and by the way, Michael is not just a shop teacher, but that's what blew my mind is they were both on the same page. They understood um some really dangers that could happen. However, they understood the bigger picture, especially Patricia, right? I mean, that was amazing just hearing her speak like that and to really say, well, okay, well, let's work backwards, from what are the blockers, etc. So for me, that was one of the wildest things I've ever heard. And I think because there's a lot of different things we're kind of taught and or told in teacher school around legalities. I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, what were your thoughts on the whole thing, just to start us off here?
Patricia, because of her educator background and
Mm,
then going into law, gives her such a unique perspective, and her community and the places that she's worked are huge benefactors of her wisdom and knowledge around school policy, school legal stuff. And it's like I was sitting there listening to her thinking, I wish I had known some of this stuff as an
mm-hmm.
educator back when I got started, or I wish, feeling like change could happen, and that the red tape really isn't as scary when you have the right things in place.
Right.
So I really felt that from both Mike and Patricia in the different ways they kind of worked around the legal issues that come to them, right? With school testing, or where does the funding come from versus how do you get a shop class into an inner city school, and with no quote unquote training, like the
Mm-hmm.
teachers aren't required to have extra training. And so I found all of that really, really interesting, and but also extremely like it was like weights taken off of my like educator shoulders. It's just feeling like, wow, these things can happen. They
Mm-hmm.
are happening. There are people out there doing this type of work on a large scale. It doesn't have to be a large scale, but it can grow into that. And that's what we have seen from like the top down federal policy level, and then Mike and Maplewood Shop from a very grassroots, singular school pilot program to now over 150 schools international, trying to bring this to even more
Mm-hmm.
from a ground up perspective.
Right. What I really liked is there was a lot of give and take on both sides, right? Like, obviously, there are legalities that certain lawyers would not jump through those hoops, and I'll get to that in a minute. But also, like with Michael and I'm sure. I mean, our dream is to have like, let's go full blown shop. Let's teach these kids real skills. I mean, but that wasn't a possibility with the way that you wanted to scale it, and he figured it out, using the hand tools, putting a desktop kind of thing on there. And that's what I liked about it, because I think too often in education we get all or none. And there's not a lot of just real negotiating and keeping the final outcome in mind. And I want to go into my my master's degree, where I do have a quote unquote principal license. They call it type 75, I think, here in Illinois. And where you get taught school leadership and administratively, what to do. But have you ever dealt with maybe legalities or lawyers in your tenure in school while you were teaching?
Yeah. Yes.
This is where Alli says, yes, I was handcuffed and I got arrested in school for building a bomb. No, I'm just teasing.
But like teachers do face legal situations with typically students. So if you're not familiar with the educational system, there are what are called IEPs, individualized education plans, and 504s, which are the legal documents. You have to follow them as an educator. And sometimes parents or students don't feel like that legal document is being held up. And it is common if you're in a more litigious district for parents to exert their lawyer backgrounds for minor things.
This is why I got nervous when Patricia came in the room, and then I felt fine. Like
nothing serious, but I mean, and it's very common in school districts for that to happen, for lawyers to be present. It's not like atypical, like if you're listening to this and you're like, whoa, I've never experienced that. Like I was at a school district where that would have never happened because people just don't bring lawyers to the table. And then there are school districts where
people do.
It could be the beginning of the year and they're reviewing the IEP and they want a lawyer present, not because anything is wrong, but because they want it to be, more clad iron tight, stuff like that. So in that sense, the level of detail that educators have to follow for certain students in school districts, there are legal documents that we have to follow beyond just, like general safety stuff, but in terms of doing what's best deemed legally for a student's education. So to like Mike and Patricia's different take on, the legality side, their work is trying to, and Mike mentioned this, for neurodivergent learners or learners who maybe don't learn typically. Like he had the stats, he had the data to back up this stuff, which is super strategic,
100%,
right? Because if you're in a school district that is the case, all the lawyer people are going to raise their hand and be like, is this safe? Like they have deemed it, as safe as, anything that would require a Band-Aid. Great. But there are layers to the legal system that Patricia kind of like got into, and like from a very like bird's eye, like this, follow the money. She gave us some really, really key things on that. But it's also like follow the priorities of the students and the families. And if you get buy-in from them, you're going to be more successful in any endeavor. And versus not getting that buy-in, and then who knows all of the things that you're going to be fighting against and could pop up. So the strategy behind Maple Wood Shop, if you didn't hear it in what Mike was describing, he has thought through that. And kudos to that program, because that type of work is needed. And they aren't doing it whimsically. They're doing it with this kind of backwards design to get what would be presumed unsafe or not for all learners. And they're showing, no, look, this is for all learners. This can meet the needs of all these different things and more. Yeah. It's incredible.
Very intentional. He's very intentional on, understanding the school, which is very interesting because his background isn't in education. I thought that was very interesting to hear. He was in the corporate world and the spreadsheet world, and then figured things out kind of in an educational sense, which was huge, and that was why he was such a wonderful guest. And then, as Patricia, you stated before, her educational background, which is so huge, so huge. I just want, I'm just going to put this right in the middle of this podcast for anybody, boards of education, anybody who is hiring legal teams for your school district. I think that's a key thing. People on that legal team need to have been in a classroom, and I don't care where in a classroom. Could have been in an elementary school, middle, high school, even post-secondary. It doesn't matter. I think that, to me, is huge. And here's why. When I went through my master's, I went, and like I said, I got a school leadership master's, MED, or whatever you call it. And I remember the law class, and the the only thing this law professor said in this class was, if you have legal pressure, give in. And I'm like, but wait, why? And they're like, it's going to cost the district less money. However, speaking with Patricia, I believe somebody like that is really going to take a look at it, whatever that instance could be, and really kind of dig into it. I feel like, in my experiences, there are certain law firms out there that are on retainer, and they sit at the school and they say, just give in, give in, give in. It takes them less time, whatever. This is why I'm saying, if you have a Patricia, somebody who really understands education, really cares about the outcome and not just the checks coming in, I think that's a big difference. That's what I kid you not. My professor was like, just 99% of the time, just go ahead and settle with them. I'm like, wow, no wonder education's gotten a little screwed up.
But there are no words for that other than Patricia said, teachers are the best advocates.
Mhm.
They're authentic advocates for change. And I think having the legal system in partnering or working with school districts can have authentic advocacy if they are more aware of the actual school environment, to your point of having some educational background in there. If you're then going to be a lawyer for a school or work with them, it's invaluable. So let's back this up just a little bit. I kind of said this in the last episode, but it's like Peter and I had been interested in this topic of, what are some legal red tapes that we just don't know about. And neither of us knew a school lawyer. And so I literally started searching and started learning some terminology on LinkedIn, and messaged probably about a dozen what people would label themselves as educational lawyers, or they've worked for a school district. And Patricia was by far a standout, without a doubt. I knew instantly. But it's you want someone like her in your corner in the educational field. I wish I had found more Patricias. My point is that they if they are on LinkedIn, I don't know, I couldn't find you.
Right.
Or I don't know, the titles kind of, get messy because it's not my area of expertise. But if that's not my area of expertise, right? Then if you're a lawyer serving a school district and serving teachers or administration, are you an expert, other than just what does the law say? How can you better navigate? Because Patricia said, where there's a will, there's a way. Yes, there are these laws. It seemed like, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not, I don't know, but right. there's some gray area there once you meet the basic requirements.
Right.
That tied with Mike and Maple Woodshop saying, getting started was we needed to find the right people, charismatic, innovative leaders wanting something changed.
Mhm.
And you have your early adopters, like the innovation curve and whatnot. I found that super interesting because the way he was able to get around the legal side or potential issues was to find the right people who had the right background, who responded to a message or a cold call or, you know, a knock on the school door. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was strategic. And now you're seeing that adoption curve happen because of that early work, and basically saying, I have a will. I know this is really good for kids,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to figure out how to get it into schools.
Right. And I don't, like, if you remember, he didn't work with Patricia on his particular, so they're like definitely saying there's more Patricias out there. There's more people who are in that. And what I'm taking from all of this is, you know, it was quite shocking to have a shop teacher. I'm just generally labeling like shop teacher, which, you know, I don't mean any disrespect, but like somebody who's going to bring power tools into a classroom, even in the elementary school levels, and a lawyer on the same page. To me, I think we just opened up another area where education could get disrupted. So even if you're like an administrator and you're frustrated, you know, especially like a superintendent or a principal, like maybe the first place you do want to look at is your legal team. You know, like maybe you really want to take a look at, okay, how many times have they been on retainer and just kind of like, you know, shrug their shoulders? And I get it. There's a lot of personal IEP 504 things that, you know, that are personal. But what about like teachers who are saying, hey, let's try this? You know, how did South Dakota get to building, you know, within their school from within? You know, like those are, maybe we should start asking that question. Who's your lawyer? You know, because that's what I took from it. I was truly amazed by the entire conversation about how open she was and understanding. And then also like, you know, Michael was saying, like, you know, really strategically doing what he does. But there's also the other question you asked was where, you know, where do most of these ideas come from? Right. And I think maybe Michael is a little bit of an anomaly. I mean, I think there's a lot of great people out there like him who are creating these great answers because they're not in the box. But Patricia said there's a lot of teachers who are coming up with these ideas, and then immediately, you know, somehow it gets cut off, but it is the right people. So maybe we've uncovered a new disrupt education area with beginning with your legal teams.
I think we definitely have. And I think we also learned that the other way to move things through is to get industry involved.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you're a teacher who has an idea and maybe you're not in a building that, you know, you're going to get wild support. It did seem like being strategic, partnering with the right people, going and doing your due diligence on like looking up other places that have done something similar or exactly what you want to do, and finding that partnership is going to probably give you the legal street cred or whatever you need to be disruptive.
Right.
And that's not necessarily an area that I would have thought would have been like the strategy to go about to disrupt an area in the school building. So extremely eye-opening to realize that there is power, and it's not necessarily from where you thought it was going to be. I mean, like we talk about industry, we talk about these alternative options for schools and to get kids thinking about alternative options beyond the traditional model, the traditional go to school, go to college, get a job. We've had lots of those conversations. But like now we're digging into these movers and shakers who are doing these awesome programs. I'm always wondering why we don't have them, you know, more across the US, but that's a whole nother issue. But what, you know, now it's like digging into like, well, how did they get started? How did they move through the school districts or whatever roadblocks they encountered? And to your point of like, it really does matter on who is on your local school board and the legal team, industry, local leaders. You know, it does seem like maybe, oh, you know, if you want to really get something started, like it might take more people at the table. But I think working that way, knowing what your community needs, you're so much more likely to be set up for success when you want to do something disruptive.
I'm going to throw an Andy Pass, imagine if. I like that. I'm going to throw an Andy Pass. It works right there. And Andy, if you're listening, thank you so much for imagining. The imagination of each state, because there's a federal level, but like each state coming up with innovative lawyer teams, educational lawyer teams that are sharing out ideas. And here's why. Because everything that is done in a school that is new or whatever usually is run through a legal team, right? Like it's got to be. You got to check the boxes for state curriculum, local curriculum, local laws, state laws, etc. Federal laws, you know, Patricia hit on that pretty well with like the 2 tests or the test that you have to give a couple times in a student's career. But beyond that, you know, the ESSER funds and things like that. But like, what are the state things? You know, we have Perkins grants, we have all these different things that are federal, some of them are state, etc. It's got to go through lawyers. So imagine if each state, or even if states were reciprocal or had the same kind of laws or whatever, you got these groups. And here's a challenge for educational legal teams out there, right? Why not market yourself like this? Like if you're really not going to be the person that's going to sit out there and say, just settle and like we'll move on and we're just going to stay on retainer, because it's very easy to do that. It's very easy to do that as a teacher, right? It's like, I'm going to take attendance a day and give worksheets. I mean, there, you know, people do it. I'm not, you know, I don't like it. I'm pretty sure like the students don't like it, but you know, so I'm not just picking on lawyers here. I'm picking on like anybody who's not being like innovative or actually moving forward. They're comfortable. And then like just market yourself that way. Imagine if that happened, because Patricia is really digging deep into like New Jersey. Like that's her state and that's Michael's state as well. So even though they didn't work together, they knew each other and they knew something around education that was innovative that happened. It's interesting. Imagine that.
It's very interesting. I like the imagine if, because that is really how you disrupt education, is by taking the imagination and taking action on it. But if you're so stuck in autopilot, if you're not like, if the system has beat you down, so to speak, and you're in that kind of the retainer mode, right? Like whether in whatever you want to define that in, where you're just checking the box. I don't care if you're a student, a teacher, a custodian, somebody working on the school, any level, like there's always new innovative ways to do things. The other piece to this that I think was really, really strategic, and it speaks to, man, how many laws there are. And I'm sure Patricia only got to like surface level of this, but right when Maplewood Shop with Mike was trying to get this into schools, they had to fit it into the current box with like teacher contracts, right? So there's like a huge legal side that I wouldn't have even have thought that, like, you want to bring something new and innovative into school. Well, the number one pushback might be your teachers, because they're like, I don't want more work.
Yep.
And so to Patricia's side, like, if you can get those key stakeholders and people who want to innovate, they're not on retainer, right? You're going to be able to move a project forward. And so that, like, is it better to do top down or from the bottom up? And it's like, teachers do get drowned in constant curriculum changes and schedule changes and all of these policy changes every year that they have to work in their already maxed out experience. So there is this opportunity for school districts to, one, provide more space for teachers to have more innovation, and then for policy lawyers, legal side, I don't know what level it needs to go at, for them to create more flexibility in these contracts, which I know are like such a hot topic. They really are, like, wow, we're not even going to dive down that rabbit hole, but like, they really are. We have on previous episodes talked about it somewhat, but just, it's so contentious because teachers are literally fighting tooth and nail to not get some more stuff added, right? So if we could remove stuff from their plates and create opportunities where they feel like they don't have to be on retainer, they're creative people, right? They want to teach, they want to, do these innovative opportunities, but we have to, as a society, in order to really disrupt education on a larger scale, we're going to have to eliminate and create more flexibility, because yes, where there's a will, there's a way, but that way could be really complicated and requires minds like Patricia and Mike, and not everybody has a Patricia and Mike in their back pocket.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So there's so much opportunities, like you're saying, like, if you're in the lawyer legal side, like, you have a lot of opportunities. If you're in the educational side, you have a lot of opportunities, and these partnerships to move things forward. And I really think also, who has the best opportunity to make rapid change are small school districts.
Yeah.
Rural
100%.
school districts. Ones that are not fully corporate, that have, like 10 high schools or, 5,000 kids in a building. Like, I mean, if you are in a smaller school district and you want change, and like, you have so much more power than you think you do, because everything moves faster in those types of environments. The bigger the organization, the longer stuff takes. And those are things for people, I think, to consider if you are looking for a job, if you are trying to create new opportunities, if you are feeling like you don't have room to do these types of things. There are places that can innovate, and talking more with people like Patricia and Mike and other people doing awesome work, because we've had hundreds of guests who are doing that type of work. That's where you have your own kind of ability to move and find those innovators, charismatic leaders, people who want to do stuff differently, because these places exist.
Yeah. I think along with that, I think it's why do teachers burn out, right? Is because they don't feel like they have control, or they don't have the sandbox, or they feel overrun. And I've always been a fan of like Google's 20% project. Is there ways? Imagine if, I'm going to throw another Andy Pass. I'm going to use that a lot because I like Andrew Pass. Like, he did such a great job. So I'm throwing an Andrew Pass. Imagine if, we allowed teachers who are innovative, who wanted to be innovative, who want to be innovative, the time to do that, right? This is really reflecting off what you just said, but like, imagine if we gave, the seat time was still there for students, yet it was an innovative day. Like, it was a work day for students, but it was also a work day for teachers. I mean, we've kind of done this with like PLCs, and we have a teacher work day. I don't think it's enough. I think it's a day during the school week, or a couple of days during a month, or however you can put it in there legally, and have teachers and students and admin all just working instead of just like these one-off committees. Like, let's get deep. Like, let's get deep into like each class. Like, what can we do to make this class better? Like, what are the things that you expected coming into this class? The state says, or the district says we have to do this. So how can we do this better? I found in business courses, and I'm sure you've seen it in science courses, it's amazing what students come up with, and you try little things and you gain a lot. So you can put them right back into curriculum after these conversations, and they will actually perform better because now they feel like they have a little bit of skin in the game. Like they've kind of thought, or, it's not 100%, but in my experiences, it's been more. So, like you said, like giving these spaces for innovative people, to work. And yeah, I mean, there is that rabbit hole of unions, and unions sometimes do stifle innovation. I mean, there's good things and bad things. Sometimes they actually push for it, right? So I think understanding, like what you said, when you're looking for a gig, maybe you do want to ask about what innovative projects have been here, like truly innovative projects. What is the legal team like? I think that's an interesting question. I've never thought about asking, if I'm going for a teacher job somewhere or an administrative job, what is a legal like team look like here? Are they innovative? Do they find ways to get things done, or do they not? And I don't know if you can get that real answer, but that's these are great questions you're bringing up, Alli.
I think it's worth asking. And the stats that we got just from Maple Wood Shop which you wouldn't expect
right
from Wood Shop, Mike talked about social emotional
Mike's a spreadsheet guy though.
He is, but I feel like he was checking all the boxes that a school district would want to hear if they were trying to bring in innovation, which he did say, like, we're on like a second stage now because we have the data, and I'm sure it's his spreadsheet background that helped him collect that data, right? Like, so smart and strategic, like, but he didn't have that on the front end. And we've talked about, like, we don't need more data, like, to get something started. We can be innovative and then I just think we overcomplicate what's good for kids, and we know in our hearts what's good for kids, and what disrupting education looks like, feels like. You know it when you see it, but sometimes to get a wider group of people behind you, you do have to really be strategic and show all of the benefits of a program like Wood Shop Class for All at all levels.
Right.
Because when I presented who was going to be the guest of this podcast, you were like, a lawyer and a wood shop teacher are going to be guests together. Kind of threw Peter, you for a loop, myself as well, because we were like, these things don't go together, but yet they have to go together in the system that we have. So disrupting education, I think, being more knowledgeable about the system, and like to your point, like me and you both learned so much, and then it makes you wonder, what else don't I know? What else do I need to know? Because in order to innovate, you can innovate better. And the best businesses who capture, the masses were prepared. They were strategic. They waited for their time. They got the data, they got the things in place so that at the right moment they could swoop in and do that. And I think innovation requires your early adopters, but it does require that strategy as well, in order to make it long-term and grow. And if that's what we want people to do and to really disrupt the traditional school model, you're playing a long game. And 100%. Playing the legal game.
Yeah. The legal. I think, my final thought here is just summing it all up. I think we're coming back into like the flexibility of getting to a place. and having the right team. I think Michael put it the best. Patricia said it as well, like putting the right team together, understanding what you want your students to kind of go through. And then, being flexible of how to get there, knowing that your way isn't going to be the only way. There are ways that the law says you can't do. There are laws that say you can do, which we don't really look at those all the time. So I think for me, that's the main thing that I'm going to take away from these two, and even this conversation here. A lot of imagination.
So much imagination. Well, this has been another amazing episode. I'm gonna take us out here.
All right, let's go.
Peter Hostrawser, I'm Alli Privet, and we'll catch you next time on the Disrupt Education Podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Disrupt Education Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Are you ready to disrupt the educational arena you're a part of? For more ways to get involved in the work we do here at Disrupt Education, check us out at disrupteducation.co or find us on LinkedIn at Peter Hostrawser or Alli Privet.
Our mission here is to help facilitate and amplify changes in the educational system through local initiatives and help you scale them into community movements. Our building network of disruptors in education are working to move beyond scores and grades as the only measure for student learning. If your school district, college, campus, or organization is looking for facilitators of this work, reach out on our website or social media.
And if you have any thoughts or feedback on this week's episode or any episode, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and most importantly, disrupting education.